Hey you all, this is 50 Cent today in the studio. Let's start it. Look, everybody wants to know when the hate started. People call me the biggest hater in hip hop, but let's get one thing straight. I'm not a hater, I'm a realist. I see things before they happen. While the rest of Hollywood was chasing the shiny suit and trying to get an invite to the white parties, I was looking at the man behind the curtain, and what I saw was something I didn't want any part of. See, I come from the south side of Queens. We grew up on the block where you had to read a man's energy before he even opened his mouth. It was a survival skill. If something fell off, it was off. And with Puffy, everything was off from day one. I remember back in the day, Puffy tried to do that thing he does with everyone. He tried to sun me. He tried to act like the big brother, the mogul who was going to show me the ropes. He approached me once and offered to take me shopping. Now think about that for a second. You're a grown man, I'm a grown man. Why are you asking to take me shopping? That's some fruity energy right there. I don't go shopping with men. I don't need another man to pick out my clothes or pay for my sneakers. I told him right then, I don't do that, man. That was the moment I knew he was weird. In our culture, especially where I'm from, that kind of approach is a red flag. It's about control. He wanted to buy me, just like he bought everyone else. He wanted me to owe him something, but you can't buy 50 Cent. I had my own money, and I had my own vision. The industry is full of people who are desperate for a seat at the table. They'll ignore the weirdness. They'll ignore the freak-offs. They'll ignore the stories of artists getting robbed of their publishing, all for a chance to be in the same room as the king of New York. But I saw the pattern. Look at the artists on Bad Boy Records. Look at Maze. Look at Shine. Look at the Locks. These guys were incredibly talented, but they all ended up either broke, in jail, or turning to God just to get away from him. I started talking about this years ago. I'd be on the radio or doing interviews, and I'd drop hints. I'd say, I don't go to Puffy's parties because there's too much going on. People thought I was just being difficult. They thought I was just trolling for headlines. But I was trying to tell y'all, the vibe was dark. There was a secret society feel to those parties. You see the pictures now, right? You see the celebrities looking uncomfortable, the cameras everywhere, the hospitality that didn't feel like hospitality. Diddy built an empire on flavor. He was the guy who could make a hit, but he was also the guy who would take 50% of your soul in the process. He had this God complex. He thought he was untouchable because he had the mayors, the CEOs, and the top stars in his pocket. He thought because he was Brother Love, he could do whatever he wanted behind closed doors. But here's the thing about being a bully. Eventually, you run into someone who isn't afraid of you. I've been shot 9 times. I've lost my mother to the streets. You think a guy in a pink suit with a bottle of Ciroc scares me? No. I made it my mission to be the fly in his ointment. Every time he tried to act like he was the moral authority of hip-hop, I was there to remind people who he really was. People ask me, 50, why don't you just let it go? Why should I? This man spent 30 years manipulating the culture. He made people feel like they had to kiss his ring to be successful. He used his power to silence people. And now, in 2026, as the world finally sees the 1,000 bottles of baby oil and the federal indictments, everyone is acting surprised. I'm not surprised. I've been waiting for this. I've been the one holding the mirror up to his face while he tried to look away. This isn't just about music. It's about the truth. It's about how he treated Cassie. It's about how he treated his artists. It's about the arrogance of thinking you can commit crimes on camera and get away with it because you're Puffy. Well, the party's over. The lights are on. The music stopped, and I'm the one standing by the door watching them take you out in handcuffs. I told you. I told all of you, but you were too busy dancing. Now look at the mess you left on the floor. You know, they say truth is stranger than fiction, but in Puffy's case, the truth is just plain nasty. When the feds raided those mansions in LA and Miami, everybody was looking for guns or drugs, and yeah, they found some of that. But what stopped the world in its tracks? 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Let that sink in. 1,000. I don't care if you're opening a spa or running a marathon in the desert. Nobody needs 1,000 bottles of lubricant. Unless, of course, you're doing what I've been telling y'all for years. You're running a freak off. Now, let's get into what a freak off actually is. Because the media tries to make it sound like just a wild Hollywood party. No, man. Based on the indictments and what we've uncovered for the documentary, these were multi-day, drug-fueled performances. Puffy wasn't just a participant, he was the director. He'd bring in male sex workers, he'd fly them across state lines, which is a federal crime, by the way, and he'd orchestrate these scenes that lasted for days. And here is the darkest part. He was recording everything. See, Puffy is a collector. He doesn't just collect art or houses, he collects leverage. That's why you see all these A-list celebrities, athletes, and politicians looking real quiet right now. They're terrified. Why? Because they know those cameras were rolling. They know that what happened after the white party ended and the freak off began is all sitting on a hard drive somewhere in a federal evidence locker. Think about the psychology of that. You invite someone to your house, you get them high on IV fluids and pink cocaine, you put them in a situation they can't control, and then you film it. That's not a party, that's a kidnapping of someone's reputation. That's how he kept Hollywood in his pocket. If you tried to speak up about his business deals or if you tried to leave the circle, he had that footage to keep you in line. He turned his bedroom into a boardroom of blackmail. I remember people used to ask me, 50, why are you always trolling him about the parties? Because I knew the price of admission. I knew that to be in that inner circle, you had to give up a piece of your dignity. I'm a man's man. I don't need to be in a room with a bunch of naked dudes and a gallon of oil to feel like a mogul. That's not power. That's a sickness. And let's talk about the IV drips. The feds found out that these sessions were so intense, so draining, that people needed medical grade IV fluids just to recover from the exhaustion and the drugs. Imagine being so deep in the freak off that you need a doctor to bring you back to life the next morning just so you can do it again. That's some Empire of Excess type of stuff. For years, Puffy hid behind the Love brand. He changed his name to Brother Love. He started talking about healing and vibrations. It was the ultimate smokescreen. While he was out there on Instagram talking about black excellence and uplifting the culture, he was behind closed doors, exploiting people, drugging people, and recording their downfall. That's why I named the documentary The Reckoning, because for every person he silenced with a video, for every girl like Cassie he thought he could buy off with a $30 million settlement, the bill is finally due. He thought he was too big to fail. He thought he had enough friends in high places to make the feds go away. But when you leave a trail of 1,000 bottles of oil and 100 victims, eventually the math catches up to you. I'm sitting here in 2026 and people are still hitting my DMs saying, 50, you were right. I don't want to be right. I wanted the culture to be better. I wanted these kids coming up in rap to realize that you don't have to sell your soul to a guy in a shiny suit to get a hit record. He's in a cell now, probably wondering if they have baby oil in the commissary. Spoiler alert, they don't. They got bars, they got guards, and they got a lot of time for him to think about all those tapes he recorded. The director is finally the one being watched, and believe me, the world is enjoying the show. You see, the thing about Puffy is that he's a magician. He spent 30 years making you look at the sparkly suit while the bodies were piling up in the backyard. People think I'm just being petty 50 when I talk about Pac and Biggie, but I'm the only one with enough balls to say what the streets have been whispering since 1996. Let's talk about the bad boy curse. Have you ever noticed that nobody, and I mean nobody, leaves Puffy with their career, their money, or their life intact? It's like a deal with the devil. You get the fame, you get the music video in the rain, but then the bill comes due. Look at Maze. He had to go to the church just to get away from the demon. Look at Shine. He took 10 years in the feds for a shooting where Puffy was the one with the gun, and then Puffy left him to rot. Look at Black Rob. Look at Craig Mack. These men built that empire, and they died broke or broken while Puffy was on a yacht dancing with a glass of Ciroc. But the biggest shadow over that empire, that's the blood of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace. For years, Puffy tried to act like the grieving brother. He made I'll Be Missing You, he cried on stage. He turned Biggie's death into a marketing campaign. But let's look at the facts. Facts that we laid out in The Reckoning. In the streets, your reputation is your currency. And the streets have always said that Puffy was scared of Tupac. He was scared of that West Coast energy. When Dwayne Keffy D. Davis got picked up in Vegas, the whole world stopped breathing. Why? Because Keffy D didn't just say he was there. He said Puffy offered him $1 million to take out Pac and Suge Knight. Now think about that. $1 million for a hit. That's not a rap beef. That's a cold-blooded business move. And while Keffy D is sitting in a cell, Puffy spent decades pretending he was Love. You can't be Brother Love when you put a bounty on the greatest rapper of our generation. And then there's Biggie, my brother Biggie. Everyone knows Puffy used Biggie as a shield. He used him for the hits. He used him for the street cred. And when things got hot in LA, he didn't protect him. He let Biggie go out there while the tension was at a boiling point. Why? Because Biggie dead was worth more to Puffy than Biggie alive. A dead legend sells more records than a living artist who's starting to realize his manager is stealing his publishing. In the documentary, we went deep into the Uptown Records days. We talked to the people who saw Puffy before the money. He was always a predator. He'd find these young, talented kids from the hood, kids like me, kids like Biggie, and he'd play the father figure. He'd get them to sign contracts they didn't understand, take their points, take their masters, and then send them out to the front lines of a war he started. He created the East Coast-West Coast war for content. He fed the fire because it made the magazines buy his pictures. But when the bullets started flying, he was the first one in the armored truck. He let Biggie take the heat. He let Pac take the lead. And when the smoke cleared, he was the only one standing, holding the checks. That's why I've never respected him. In Queens, we don't respect a man who lets his brothers die for his bank account. I sat there in the 90s watching this happen. I saw how he manipulated the media to make himself look like the victim. I saw how he turned a funeral into a fashion show. The bad boy curse isn't some supernatural jinx. It's a business model. It's a predator feeding on his own. He didn't just want your talent. He wanted your life. He wanted to own the narrative. But you can't own the narrative when the ghosts start talking. Now, in 2026, the feds are looking at those cold cases again. They're looking at the money trails. They're looking at the statements from the guys who were in the room when the deals were made. And I'm right here making sure nobody forgets. Every time I post a meme, every time I troll him about his fruity parties, I'm reminding the world, this is the man who turned hip hop into a graveyard. You wanted to be the king of New York, Puffy? Well, even kings have to answer for the blood on their throne. And your time is up. You ever hear that saying, the wheels of justice grind slow, but they grind fine? Well, in Puffy's case, those wheels finally turned into a steamroller, and I'm the one driving it. Let's look at the scoreboard in 2026. They gave him 50 months. Think about that. The man who thought he owned the sky, the man who had the keys to every mansion in the Hamptons, is now sitting in a 6x9 cell. They say it's for the racketeering and the sex trafficking, but we all know what it's really for. It's for 30 years of thinking he was untouchable. He thought because he gave enough money to charities and hung out with the mayors, he had a get out of jail free card. But the feds, they don't care about your white parties. They don't care how many Grammy awards you got on your mantelpiece. When they come for everything. And notice something? Notice how quiet it is in Hollywood right now. It's deafening. Where are all the best friends? Where are the A-list actors who were laughing in his kitchen? Where are the superstars who were toasted with his champagne every summer? They've all vanished. They're deleting their Instagram photos. They're firing their publicists. And they're praying to God that their name isn't on one of those freak-off tapes. See, that's what I've been trying to tell y'all. Puffy didn't just build a record label. He built a blackmail empire. He didn't just invite you to a party. He invited you into a trap. He's got footage of people you look up to, people who win Oscars, doing things they can never explain to their kids. That's why nobody spoke up. That's why everyone stayed silent while Cassie was suffering. They weren't protecting Puffy. They were protecting themselves. But I don't have that problem. You can't blackmail a man who doesn't care what you think. You can't threaten 50 Cent with a tape because I was never in the room. I was outside looking at the house saying, that place smells like a federal indictment. In the documentary, we show the footage from the raids. We show the panic. We show the moment the feds realized that this wasn't just one man. It was a whole system of enabling. They found the ledgers. They found the flight logs. You know who was on those planes, Puffy? We do. And soon the world will too. He's trying to fight back from the inside. He's having his sons, Justin and Christian, go on the Zeus network to try and flip the script. Zeus, man? Really? That's where you go when you've lost the war. That's like trying to fight a forest fire with a water pistol. Those kids are out there defending a man they don't even truly know. They grew up in the mansion. They didn't see the freak-offs in the basement. They're just collateral damage in their father's ego trip. And then you got the political side. Puffy tried to play the black excellence card one last time. He tried to say this was a hit on a successful black man, but give me a break. Exploiting young black women, drugging black artists, and stealing their publishing isn't black excellence. That's just being a predator. I'm a black man who built $1 billion brand without a single sex trafficking charge. It ain't about race, it's about right and wrong. I'm donating every dollar from the reckoning to the victims. Every stream, every view, every cent. Why? Because I don't need the Diddy money. I got power money. I got SMS audio money. I got Le Chemin du Roi money. I'm doing this for the sport. I'm doing this because I promised the streets that I'd be the one to turn the lights on. So here we are. The king of New York is wearing a jumpsuit. The white parties are over. The baby oil has dried up. And Hollywood is sitting by the phone waiting for the feds to knock. I told you a long time ago, get rich or die trying. Puffy got rich, but he killed his soul to do it. And now he's just trying to survive 50 months in a place where nobody cares about your vibe. Checkmate. Puffy, get the strap. This is the post-credits, our bonus section, the final nail in the coffin. This is where 50 Cent addresses the industry enablers and the upcoming 2026 trials. This is the look into the camera moment where everyone else in Hollywood gets put on notice. Section 5, the aftermath, the enablers, and the 2026 trial. Wait, y'all thought it was over just because he got sentenced? Nah, we're just getting to the good part. The post-credits scene is where the real horror movie starts for the rest of the industry. See, Puffy didn't do this alone. You don't run a global trafficking network and hold freak-offs for 30 years without a whole lot of people looking the other way. I'm talking about the executives, the agents, the security teams, and yeah, the other celebrities who sat there, drank the champagne, and watched the door close. In 2026, the Enabler List is the most dangerous document in America. My documentary, The Reckoning, didn't just name Diddy. It started pointing fingers at the silent partners. All those people who used to call Puffy a visionary are now calling their lawyers. You see them on the red carpets now looking over their shoulders. They know the feds aren't done. 50 months for Puffy was just the opening act. The real show is the civil trials coming up this year. We've got over 100 people coming forward now. And they aren't just suing Puffy. They're suing the hotels. They're suing the record labels. And they're suing the people who were in the room. You think you're safe because you weren't the one holding the camera? Think again. In a federal racketeering case, if you knew and you didn't do nothing, you're part of the enterprise. And to all the rappers who used to hang out with him just to feel important, I see you. I see you trying to act like you were never that close to him. I got photos, I got videos. The internet never forgets. You were all about bad boy for life until life meant a prison sentence. Now you're good boy for life, huh? The industry is changing. The mogul era, where one guy could bully the whole culture, is dead. I killed it. I used social media like a scalpel to cut out the cancer. People said I was toxic. No, I was the detox. You had to get all that poison out of the system so the next generation of artists can breathe without wondering if their CEO is recording them in the bathroom. Puffy is sitting in that cell right now, and I bet he's thinking about me. He's wondering why I wouldn't just take the shopping trip and be quiet. It's because I'm built different, Puffy. I don't need a circle. I am the circle. I don't need a white party. I got an empire built on grit and 100% honesty. The 2026 trials are going to be a bloodbath. More tapes will leak, more names will drop, and I'll be right here on Instagram with a bottle of my finest cognac narrating the whole thing for y'all. I'm the narrator of your downfall because you chose to be the villain in everyone else's story. To the fans, stay tuned. The documentary was just the beginning. To the enablers, sleep with one eye open. And to Puffy, I hope the 50 months feels like 50 years. I told you, I'm a diamond. You can't break me, you can only polish me. The end of an era, the start of the truth. Get the strap, we out.